Greetings and welcome to Provident Vox, where we discuss various aspects of the occult and magic without the bullshit.
You're here with us,
Baron Aragni
and Baroness Aragni, your hosts, published authors, and occultists with around 40 years of combined practical experience.
In today's episode, we will be discussing witchcraft, what it is, what defines it, its various practices, and more.
Before we begin, if you enjoy this humble little podcast of ours, please like, share, and subscribe to be kept up to date on any new episodes and so that more people can discover it. We would like to start off this podcast episode by thanking all of you who have supported us in this podcast thus far and for sticking around, so to speak, while we were so silent for some time. It is much appreciated and we do notice you, all right, and we appreciate you greatly.
And we also like to take a minute in silence for those who lost their lives by being persecuted for practicing their craft. And memory to those who came before us. Here's an update on our latest developments and why we were so quiet. We were working on our bachelor's degree on the metaphysical sciences. That's right, we got it. We are now official ordained ministers from the University of Metaphysics. So you can call us Reverend Aragni and Reverend Aragni.
From here on, we will be pursuing our master's degrees and then our doctoral degrees in metaphysical sciences as well as other fields.
What is witchcraft? Well, it's definitely not Wicca or any other neo-pagan movements. Witchcraft, in essence, can be divided or categorized as follows: traditional and black witchcraft. Traditional witchcraft found its roots within ancient paganism and heathenry in Europe and as well in Africa with African traditional beliefs. Within Europe, it stems from Druidic belief systems. Unbeknownst some people, the Druid belief system is actually quite visceral. It wasn't your typical asterisk and obelix Druids, no, indeed not. At times they would offer human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, and even worship ancient deities.
Black witchcraft, on the other hand, although similar in many aspects to traditional witchcraft, has two major differences. It incorporates infernal magic and necromancy in very heavy doses of each. Black witchcraft is the first magical practice that both Baron and I were initiated into all those years ago, and although we no longer directly practice it, it will always hold a special place in our hearts, as well, that was our starting point after all.
The first practitioners of witchcraft were solitary practitioners. Commons didn't exist at that time. It was always the teacher and the student, and then from there on, once the student excelled, the student, let's just say they went on their way and did whatever they did. Now the master and the student was never of the same sex. The master was either a male or female, while the students will either be the opposite sex of that. That is the original structure of witchcraft. It's irrelevant of which tradition you're looking at. Why? That represents both the masculine and feminine part of not only nature, but also cosmic laws, the duality of things. And this we can also see clearly with one of the Hermetic laws, the laws of gender. Within witchcraft, we can achieve much, much, much. However, it depends on individual, of course, the individual preferences, what they want to do. Witchcraft is also a practice of spiritual growth, aside from, how can we say, altering your microcosm or influencing your microcosm or the microcosms of others via will and other means.
There's one thing that whatever paradigm, traditional or black witchcraft, it does not matter. There's one thing that they both have at its core, what witchcraft is at its core, and that is nature magic. Regardless, as mentioned, if it is traditional or black witchcraft, and regardless if it's any other variants that even you may create yourself, nature magic or earth magic is at the core of it. Now, when we say nature magic or earth magic, don't make the mistake of thinking it's hold hands, kumbaya, peace be to the world. No. Nature magic, earth magic is not like that. And there's one way we can directly prove this to you. If you look at nature itself, all the plants and animals and creatures of this earth, and you really take a look at it, are they all peaceful? Will they all hold hands or lie together or be at peace with each other? No, they hunt each other. They would kill each other. Sometimes out of necessity and sometimes just because they can. Sometimes out of pleasure even. Even plants, some heal, some harm, and so on and so forth. Nature itself is not a light or right-handed or peaceful thing by its very construct. Yet again, duality. Everything contains duality, and nature magic is no different. But that being said, witchcraft is nature magic. Although there may be other add-ons such as necromancy, as with black witchcraft, nature magic forms the core of all practices of witchcraft.
Exactly. Nature magic is neither left-hand path nor right-hand path. It simply is what it is, yet it contains both those elements. And those elements being, what we mentioned before, is mercy and severity. Mercy is the lighter side of things, and severity obviously is the darker side of things. So within that very construct, there is balance, as it is in all things.
Now we will move on to other various aspects of the practice of witchcraft, which you must be acquainted with at least a little bit before you choose to pursue this path, so that you can, practice and wield it better to your own advantage.
Yes. Let's take a look at having a patron or a matron spirit, or maybe both. Maybe you work with both of them, as an example. Hecate, Senunos, Diana, Aradia, whatever you wish to name them. That's patrons and matrons. Now, as mentioned a couple of moments ago, the duality of things. The patron and the matron does not necessarily indicate external sentient beings, but also the idea and the concept of the balance within nature. Hence the masculine, the patron, and the feminine, the matron.
If you choose to work with a patron and matron in your practice of witchcraft, The best way we can advise you to do so, to choose them, is to go to which ones you feel drawn to.
In our book on witchcraft, traditional witchcraft, the book of Azarak, we made mention of two very specific patron and matron beings. One being Black Venus and the other Barabbas.
Now, these are just two of so many examples. There's also Hecate, as mentioned, Aradia, as examples of the matron and of the patron. There's Cernunnos and others.
The Green Man.
The Green Man. And
many others.
Honestly, we won't be able to just list them all out for you. But the core principle of that is this. Choose those which you associate with, which you personally associate with. Not what others say, no, you must work with these two or whatever. No, those that you personally associate with. If you associate with, say, Hecate and Cernunnos as your patron and matron, then so be it. Then you will work with them as your patron and matron. That's it. The role that a patron and matron also holds in your practices, apart from representing the masculine and the feminine, not to work with them as if you're working with a working spirit or something you will employ to do something for you on your behalf. No. Your patron and matron's purpose is to teach you, guide you, and assist you in your various undertakings, and especially your spiritual development. They are not to be employed. After all, their purpose as patron and matron is to let you grow, to allow you to grow, and to show you the proper way of practicing.
Yes, you'll experience them very much as intuitive. They will whisper in your ear, they will guide you, they will reveal themselves to you in dreams, or your purpose to yourself within your dreams, through other people, perhaps through animals, portent, omens. It could be anything. It simply depends on your relationship with your patron and matron spirit or deity.
A simple way of looking at them is the patron is your father, your new father, and the matron is your mother. It's as simple as that, really.
As Baronessa said, you will not simply just employ them as you would any other working spirit. However, you can, as an example, request them to fulfill some desire which you may or may not have, and this usually is paired with offerings and libations.
Much as you would make offerings to deities, as in the past, to cause certain changes in your microcosm.
Now here's a question. Do you need a patron and a matron spirit to practice witchcraft? No, you do not.
That is correct. As Baron said, you do not need it. Although, and we reluctantly say this, if you are a complete novice, and we mean you really know absolutely nothing about any magical practices whatsoever, and you have absolutely no experience, then we would recommend that you get a patron and a matron to guide you through your initial birthing pains, so to speak, on your magical path. However, you do not need them, and after a while, as you progress in your path and as you grow spiritually, you will no longer need them. You will no longer require them, as you would have outgrown them.
Indeed, this sounds a bit odd, saying that you'll outgrow something, but this is the truth. We've experienced this throughout our whole path within the occult, outgrowing certain spirits and constructs, because we've grown our own spiritual power to an extent which surpasses them.
And if you yourself has been practicing for a while, then this probably has happened to you before. Now, stop us if this sounds familiar. A spirit that you have worked with for such a long time and that you have built such a strong relationship with, all of a sudden doesn't seem to respond to you in the same way, or if you ask them to do something for you on your behalf, they seem reluctant, or they're basically dragging their feet to do it for you. This and a couple of other factors are symptoms that you have outgrown that particular spirit or entity that you have been working with. Now, you may think that it's, then why put in the effort in the first place if you're going to eventually outgrow them? Yeah, well, that question we'll leave to you to answer because, well, it is your path after all. However, they serve a purpose, as with, well, any other tool in the occult arts. It's no different. And yes, I can positively hear some of the fanatics screaming through their, device that, no, how dare we speak that way of these spirits and entities and deities and so on. But then we will say the following. If you have outgrown a certain entity, yet it is sore about it, or it tries to hold you back or do anything like that in any way to you, then it is purposefully holding you back, and then it was never so great to start off with. If the thing that you have been working with was truly great and actually regarded you in a good way and not as some groveling thing by its feet, they will be happy for you if you have outgrown them. And they will likely tell it to you straight, listen, I cannot do anything more for you that you cannot do for yourself. So actually, if you work magic properly, if you immerse yourself deeply enough and you practice well, you will eventually outgrow your patron and matron if you work with them. And that is good.
Yes, remember, on our path, our personal path, we have outgrown many spirits, many so-called patron and matrons, and we have burned bridges with many spirits because simply they were useless. Others we have bound, cast in chains just because they were very much deceptive, and you can say they messed us around, for lack of better words. So you must understand that in witchcraft, in magic, in the occult, you will come across spirits like this. They will waste your time. They will try to manipulate you also and keep you back, and other nefarious things which they will do. So with that being said, you should not be naive. Definitely not. You must always be alert and aware, and you must always question them nonetheless, irrelevant if they proclaim to be a patron or matron. Question everything, like we always say. It is a good thing.
If you question your patron or matron and they become upset with you for some reason, yeah, believe it, they definitely do not have your best interest in mind, shall we call it. They do not actually regard themselves as patrons and matrons, and they just, well, they're basking in the glory that you are providing them, of course. They are enjoying all the offerings and sacrifices and the attention. True patrons and matrons, true spirits, entities, will not mind you questioning them and their motives or anything like that. That's just the way of things.
Exactly. Remember that. It's very important, irrelevant of what you practice. Now let's take a look at witchcraft and sympathetic magic. Witchcraft and sympathetic magic. Well, that is, you've got such an arsenal at your hands with that in any case. It's almost seemingly unending, so to speak, because everything and anything around you, you can make use of in crafting your magic within witchcraft. The most important thing is, in witchcraft, there must be association with what you do, irrelevant of what it is, irrelevant of what symbol or what object it is that you make use of. If you cannot associate with that which you attempt to use in your magic, then you shouldn't make use of it at all. Rather find something else that you can associate with. Some people say that this carries this magical potency and this carries and that. Not necessarily, because firstly, magic is energy to start off with. Now, yes, certain plants contains energy. Well, basically all plants contain energy, all herbs, all even something which looks as if it's dead, like a twig or stone. It contains energy itself. So it just depends what you want to achieve, how you associate with that, then you can work wonders.
Another aspect to keep in mind is perception. Yeah, that ties very strongly into your association. As Baron said, if you can associate with it, use it. If you cannot, then don't. It is as simple as that. And the same counts for spellwork in magic. Now, spellwork is probably one of the main things that people are initially drawn to practice witchcraft, actually, from what we have noticed. It forms a large part of it. However, remember what we have told you, what witchcraft is actually about. And just keep that in mind throughout this, okay? With Spellwork, you always find people, online and sometimes even in person that seeks out spells, seeks out specific instructional spells like, okay, this is a love spell to do this and this and this, or this is a curse to cause this and this and this. And then they believe that that is all that exists in ever since the beginning of time regarding Spellwork. Now, for in case you have not realized this as of yet, although spells by itself, you can read spells in a grimoire and you can practice it and it may work for you. Spellwork is not set in stone. You can create your own spells that will probably work 100% better than any spell that you will find in any other book or grimoire that has not been written by you. The reasons for this is the above mentioned, or aforementioned. Association, perception.
Yeah, let's look at simple methods of creating spells within witchcraft. You find a bunch of twigs, irrelevant what it is. It doesn't have to be oak, blackthorn, or any other specific tree. Take a twine, add a bone or two with that, and then you have a perfect spell for binding, protection, for love, and even destruction. To keep it simple is to make the most powerful spells ever. You see, there's a false assumption even within witchcraft. The more complex it is, the more potent it is, etc. and so forth. In essence, you don't need a cauldron or nganga. You don't need this and that. You just need yourself and that which you can find to make your magic work within witchcraft. In essence, yourself. Take yourself, go outdoors, look for things which draws your attention in nature itself, specifically in nature. And you take those things, those items, and you combine them to make your spell. And there you go. It's that simple.
It's as simple as Baron said, walking around outside with your intent in mind, like say, you want to protect your household, you and everyone in it from any harm or anything like that. Then you go outside, you walk around. Again, nature magic. You pick up a bunch of twigs, as mentioned in the example just now. You take a twine and you bind all the twigs together. All the twigs represent all the people in the house or animals or whatever. And the twine that you bind it with represents, the protection that you place over it. And literally, that's it. You can, of course, follow pre-made spells written by other people. Sure. However, here's where the complicated bit comes in when following instructional spell work that has been written by other people. Apart from the association, perception, and energy factors mentioned before, it is down to your spiritual growth and development. That means, let's just say, there's two people, Bob and Bill. They both created this protection spell that we have just recounted to you. However, Bob has a lot more practical experience in witchcraft and in magic in general, yet Bill has absolutely no experience. Bill's version of that spell will still work, however, not as much as Bob's version because of spiritual potency. Now, your personal level of spiritual growth, spiritual power, becomes part of the spell that you perform, that you cast, or however you want to put that. A little bit of you goes into everything that you do. So keep that in mind as well.
Exactly. It's like you imprint upon everything that you touch, even your intent emits energy, and that energy imprints upon those objects that you make use of in witchcraft. And make no mistake, in witchcraft you use objects. Most times it is natural objects of nature. There's always something physical in that regard.
Twigs, living plants, rocks, bones, carcasses, blood, spit,
feathers, roots,
seeds, whatever you can think of that is in nature, that's what you're going to use.
Exactly. That's why I say there's endless possibilities of the objects and so forth that you can make use of in witchcraft in regards to spells and magic.
We're going to give you a simple example and instruction, at least, on how to perform a very simple spell, even simpler than the one before, a binding. Now, this is personally one of my absolute favorite forms of spellwork because it is one of the simplest forms, save from just using your own will. This is what you're going to need. You're going to need a cord. The color does not matter. Choose a color that you associate with if you want to make it a color. Otherwise, any cord will do as long as it is natural, like cotton or fiber or anything like that. Measure it from the tip of your middle finger onto your elbow and cut it. That will be your binding cord. Now, usually bindings have knots in, let's just say 7, 5, 7, 9, and numbers like that, right? So let's just make it 9 for this particular example. Think about what you want. Think about your desire. Remember though, bindings, although the name implies to bind, as in to constrain something, the possibilities of that is also rather endless. You can bind an illness as well as bind health to a person. You see what we mean with this? So, keeping your intent in mind, you take your cord. Let's just say, envision this as we're saying this to you right now. The cord is horizontal in front of you. Now at the one end, tie a knot while stating your intent, whether you state your intent as a simple sentence or whether you want to speak a word or anything like that, it doesn't matter. Again, this is up to you. As you tie the knot, you may mark it with a drop of your blood. You may mark it with some of your spit. You may smudge it in incense. You can do whatever you wish with that as well. Now, at the opposite end of the binding cord, you tie another knot. And this knot, you can either repeat the same statement as the first knot, or you can choose a different statement, yet which relates to the first statement. And so you tie the knots left, right, left, right, left, right, until you reach the last one in the center. Now the binding is complete. As an example, say you want to bind health to someone, as an example. Then with knot 1, you will say, for example, so-and-so is healthy. Knot 2, so-and-so is no longer suffering from any illness. Knot 3, so-and-so is now healthy, and so on and so forth. Then you may place this binding somewhere on your property, or if you're doing this for someone else or on someone else, you may choose to place it somewhere where they may encounter it or on their property or something like that. Or you may tie it around your arm or leg and leave it there until it falls off by itself. And that is literally how a binding is performed.
Bindings are truly ancient because, well, we say that there's historic evidence that, well, archaeologists did discover cords of binding as far back in ancient kingdoms of Sumeria, Babylonia. So it is truly ancient and it is extremely potent. Make no mistake of that. Just because something is simple doesn't make it of a lesser potency. Okay, next, let's take a look at witchcraft and evocation, right? To summon forth outside of yourself. Now, witchcraft and evocation walks hand in hand with each other. Remember, evocation is usually part of high magic. It's a practice of high magic, which, let's just say, witches from days gone has adopted and formulated their own systems of evocation, but the core basics is the same. You have your beginning, your middle, and the end. Beginning is to call forth the spirit, entity, being, by its name, or through the authority of its ruling spirit. And then you mention the name of the spirit that you wish to evoke. The middle is where you usually speak your terms or state why or what you want from the spirit, what the spirit must do for you, and what payment is expected of you in return. And at the end is the discharge or dismissal of the spirit.
Now, we're not going to speak too much about evocation in this particular episode because, well, courses, video course, books that we all offer, and also we may make a separate podcast in the future regarding evocation only. But for now, all you need to know is that it does form a part of witchcraft. You will inevitably, in some way, shape, or form, whether you choose to not have a patron and matron or whether you choose to have them, it does not matter. At some point in time, you will likely employ a spirit or entity to perform some task for you or to use in conjunction with spellwork. And this is where the evocation aspect comes in. Yet again, we will put this out there for the how manyth time, because some people are a little bit slow on the uptake with this. Evocation is calling forth outside of yourself, as Baron said. Invocation is to call within. Always remember that.
Okay, now that we mentioned invocation, make a short mention of invocation as well. Once you have a relationship with an entity or being, usually your patron or matron spirit within the paradigm of witchcraft, you may also invoke them. Invocation can take the form of two things, basically. They can partially possess you. That's with your allowance and consent, of course. And the second one is just to let their energy or vibration course through you and empower your being temporarily. Remember, this is a temporary thing. It's not permanent at all. That's for the purpose of a spell or some sort of a magical working. That's when you invoke these entities, within witchcraft at least.
We will give an example of a spirit which will no doubt be invaluable to you, especially if you are new on the path of witchcraft, which will greatly assist you in your practices of divination. His name is Vasago, and he's also known as the Witch's Friend. He is listed in the Lesser Key of Solomon, although, you all know, hopefully know at least our opinion on that book by now. However, we can say that Vasago is indeed a very useful spirit and does indeed help wonders with divination. If you divine through him or you wish to divine with him or whatever. If you want to work with him, we suggest you just Google is like right there. So just type in Vasago or the Lesser Key of Solomon and you will find his sigil.
How do you perform divination using Vasago? Okay. We're going to give you a simple method. It's very easy. As Baronessa said, find out about Vasago. Then get his seal, place it on the table, get his N. Have your divinatory tools or your jacks ready for the divination. Call forth Vasago via his N, just by speaking his N. Close your eyes, focus on your intent. In other words, the purpose of the divination, and then perform your divination. Whether it's card, bones, ruins, shells, it's irrelevant. Perform it, and then your outcome will be usually much more accurate than it would without it, especially if you are a novice and you're not intuitive in your divinatory methods.
Vasago is an excellent stepping stone, if you will, to help you develop your own faculties. Again, we cannot stress this enough. Vasago is not meant, Vasago as well as others like him, are not meant to be used as a crutch. They are there for the purpose, or to serve a purpose that you cannot do yourself as of yet. Always remember that. You can also directly evoke Vasago and ask him questions. However, this tends to be a little bit more advanced for people or for practitioners, and is generally not recommended for novices, as you need to be able to successfully communicate with spirits in a two-way format that goes beyond yes and no.
And exactly, aside from that, you must be certain that it is the actual spirit that you are evoking when it manifests, because if you're not experienced, any spirit can come forth which can be malicious, and that will be to your detriment.
Yeah, so we're not even going to get into all that. That's just a very large subject to just quickly try to explain like that anyway.
But remember, simplicity is key. Time and time again, we cannot stress this enough. Witchcraft and divination. There are many various methods to perform divination in witchcraft. Some prefer the bones, others the runes, while others go to the shells, or some use the tarot or other forms of such methods. However, it's going to be up to you. There's not a set method
that is more witchcrafty than another.
No, it's up to you as an individual. If you feel that you can work well with, for example, bones, then you may use the bones to divine through, or the runes. If you feel more drawn to the Germanic traditions, you can use the runes, or the African tradition, you may use the shells, the cowries, if you know how to make use of them, or the cards. It's simply up to you. It's a matter of choice.
Divination is, as spellwork is, one of the probably main components of most practices of magic, and witchcraft is no exception to that. It's a little bit redundant to explain what divination is, because we are sure you already know that by now. So, now that you know that it's yet again all up to you, there's no rules, there's no set anything regarding that, we will give you an example of a method of divination that you may make use of, which we can personally recommend as we'd like to say the best method, but we're not going to sit here proclaiming that we know all things in existence. We do not. However, it is a method which we personally made use of for many, many years, and those people who do make use of it as well only report the most excellent things about it. Great accuracy, a lot of extra information that other forms of divination does not offer, and so on. We have written about this method in the Hexagrammaton. It's called Salutamancy. And we will now explain it to you in a aspect of witchcraft.
Basically, Baronessa and I, we created this method Salutamancy, and we named it also in accordance to its creation and its function. It is extremely simple. These jacks, those are, how can we say, parts of the whole which you will use to perform your divinations, will be of a natural origin, such as bones, stones, twigs, etc. and so forth, and shells. Okay, so those are the general jacks you will use. However, Salutamancy is dependent on you as an individual, on your association. So you will go outside as well, yet again, and you will look for whatever draws your eyes. And then you take that item and you plop it in a pouch. And you go on to the next and the next and the next until you have round about 25 of them, or any number which you are comfortable with. Now, when you have everything you want, this can take as long as you need to. This can take a week, a month, a year, whatever, until you have collected all things. And then once you feel content, as if it is sated, and then, like I said, you go home, the last try, and then you wash everything in salt water just to cleanse the negative residual energy off of it. And you take each item in turn and you name it, what it represents. Also make note of it in a notebook, your journal, or your grimoire, and what, for example, the stone will mean, or the bone, or the skull, or whatever. And then you note it down. And then once you have given it names, you can also place a drop of your blood upon the jack, each little item that you have, which makes up the whole. So you place your blood upon it and you bless it in your name or for the purpose of divination as such. And put it in a pouch, a black pouch again, and then you can cast it. For example, upon a circle that you draw on a piece of paper, those jacks that fall within the circle, those are the jacks that's going to give you your answer. Those that falls without the circle, outside of the circle, those ones are discounted. Or you can also just put your hand in the pouch and just draw one forth without looking, at a whim, and then to determine what the outcome will be. So you can also get answers to yes or no questions in that manner.
The form of casting it, or when you cast these jacks of yours, interpreting it, as you probably have guessed, there's no handbook or guidebook for this. This is up to you and what you have named them as. However, this is an intuitive form of divination. What do we mean by that? What that means is, again, there is no handbook to tell you what everything means. It means that you will have to have a look at how the jacks lie in a circle. Is, say, a bone, which indicates one thing pointing directly at another jack, which means another thing. Are there smaller groupings in the big circle, and so on and so forth. So the best advice we can give regarding that in the aspect of intuitive divination is, as you cast it, you just look at how it lies. Does it form any particular pattern to you? Are there jacks that's pointing at other jacks? Is there a focus point somewhere that you have noticed? Then you can actually get extremely detailed divinations in that way, just by interpreting it in that manner.
Remember, intuitive divination also means that you need to follow your gut. So that little voice or that feeling that you have inside you, which attribute the meaning to the said jack, is going to determine what it's going to be. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, especially if you're an extremely intuitive person in regards to divination.
Also, another thing which we absolutely must make mention of regarding divination, especially intuitive divination, is sometimes if the situation that you're divining on is close to you, say it's something you feel very strongly about, or which you are stressed or worried about, or you're highly emotional about it in general, that might influence the outcome, not just of this particular method of divination, salutomancy, but of any other form of divination. So you must be able to distance yourself from the question itself and to be able to read it in a manner which you will not purposefully seek out what you want to hear instead of seeing what is really there.
With that walks in hand mastering yourself, because if you haven't mastered yourself as a practitioner, all your emotions will rise to the surface, and that will quite literally blind your reasoning. Then you will not be able to see the truth. So in cases where you are deeply involved within the situation emotionally and mentally, rather let someone else, a reputed person, perform the divination on your behalf. Because if you are a novice and you haven't mastered yourself, or even if you think you are adept, you can still influence your own outcome of the divination via your emotional state. Because remember, everything, even thoughts and emotions, are energy, and energy has direct influence upon the material and the spiritual worlds.
Now, this following bit that we will discuss is something which irks us quite a lot, and it's absolutely ridiculous, actually. It's very frustrating that people still fall under this misconception. Gender in witchcraft. There is this strange and annoying modern opinion that says that for some reason only females can practice witchcraft or be witches or whatever, and males cannot, or anything like that, that as if witchcraft is gender related. No form of magic is gender related. You must remember this well. The only aspect gender may have in any form of the the magical arts or any occult practices is the concept of duality. Nothing more, nothing less. If you are a male and you want to practice witchcraft, go ahead.
When I just turned 13 years old, as some of you may know, I was initiated into black witchcraft by my teacher, my mentor, the late Morrigiana. Now, she was a female, obviously. However, as most of you know, I'm a male. You see, the whole principle of genders is not so much sex itself, but the expression of energy. That is the core of gender within the occult and actually life in general. That is simply the expression of energy or the manifestation of energy. It's irrelevant whether it's on the physical plane or on the spiritual plane. So gender is not actual a sexual or biological thing so much as it is an energetical one. Right? So, as Baronessa was saying,
regardless what the television tells you, or regardless what you may read on forums or fuck knows where else, in all honesty, regardless of your gender, regardless of how you identify yourself as, or no matter what, you can practice witchcraft. If you feel drawn to practice witchcraft, if you feel that that is a practice that you want to delve into, then do it. No matter if you're a man, a woman, a boy, a girl, a transgender, whether you're gay or straight or lesbian, whether you do not identify as any gender, whether you are young, old, it just does not matter.
Exactly, it doesn't matter. But keep in mind, you will always have an expression of the energetic factor within you because it exists without you. That is why. So your gender will not determine whether you are witch or non-witch. It is what it is. If you want to practice witchcraft and you're initiated by these spirits or through a mentor or even self-initiation, you are dubbed a witch, irrelevant male, female, or whatever. That's simply the way it is. And the next point is creating your own path within witchcraft. You see, here's a secret. You don't have to follow any paradigm, dogma, or anything as such within witchcraft. You can create your own. You can work with any entities, any patron or matron, or without any of them. Your structure within your personal path can be whatever you want it to be. It can be complex or it can be as simple as you wish. Earlier we mentioned perception and association. That walks hand in hand with everything, as we said, even with you creating your own path. What you are comfortable with, what you associate with. However, you need to remember what you believe is not necessarily the truth, because the truth is simply as it is, it's the truth. However, belief can be deceptive. So you must be certain of that which you practice and that which you choose to practice that is indeed suited to you as an individual. And the worst thing you can do is not being true to yourself and lying to yourself with whatever you do within the occult and life in general. So that comes back to mastering yourself also. That just doesn't mean to know yourself as a person. You must also know your limits, your likes, dislikes, everything about you. And also removing negative things from your life which will hinder your spiritual progress. Also progress in witchcraft. It also starts within first. Work on yourself first, and then you can better your practice in any paradigm within the occult.
We are great advocates of creating your own path. I mean, our path, the hexagrammaton, which you all may or may not know about by now already, we created that path. That is our path. Many people who we speak to or who read our works, they say our works are eclectic. They say it is a mixed match of many paradigms. And you know what? That is absolutely right. It is. it is eclectic. I mean, although we are most known for our practices of necromancy, it is a shame because that is not the only thing we have ever practiced and mastered, not even close. So our personal practice, it culminated to the Hexagrammaton, realizing God within. So whatever you want your path to be, your personal paradigm that you create for yourself, that is the paradigm of you. That is not the paradigm of someone else or something else. That is created by you for your purposes.
We want you to remember something very important. Irrelevant what form of witchcraft, magic, or any practice within the occult you may practice, each and every one of them is eclectic by its very nature. There's no so-called pure system of magic, as it contains all, various systems within itself to form a whole, such as high magic is taken from the ancient Greeks, the Romans, it's taken from ancient East, Middle East, everywhere. And even witchcraft has taken elements from high magic, it's taken elements from theurgy, it's taken elements from necromancy, etc. and so forth, from right across the world, just to combine itself into one system, irrelevant of what you practice, what system of witchcraft you practice or magic you practice. It's eclectic, remember this. We also have to recommend the Book of Azarak. If you are starting on your path of witchcraft, this book will be an absolute boon to you.
Yes, we will shamelessly self-promote our own works on our own podcast.
It contains all elements of witchcraft, whether it is traditional or black witchcraft within it. The book is divided in two parts. How can we say it? The lighter side and the darker side. So if you're a novice, you're just beginning, or even if you're adept, you want to learn something more, something new, something different, something truthful, not filled with bullshit, read the Book of Azarak.
The Book of Azarak will serve as an excellent starting point for you to further grow upon. And, well, it's more than just work for novices, as mentioned. So, yes, if you have listened to this podcast and you are itching to practice a little bit of witchcraft, to seek out a new paradigm, perhaps, we recommend you look into the Book of Azarak. Of course, it is written by us. It's available on our websites.
And that concludes this podcast. Thank you for listening, and please join us again every second Wednesday for new episodes.
And this time we're going to stick to that. We're always open to suggestions, recommendations, questions, feedback, or even just to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us. We love hearing from you.
And there's a couple of things I'd like to make mention. There's some future endeavors which we are currently working on. 2 books actually. One is on the subject matter of energy itself. It's not just simple energy, it's cosmic energy, how to make use of it, etc. and so forth. And the next book after that will be a book dedicated to Pazuzu.
After popular demand, by the way, many people has asked us to write a book about Pazuzu after they've read Liber Infernus and Vernar, or they've read some of our other works. So yes, we are officially saying that we are currently working on a book dedicated to him as well.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to be kept up to date on any new episodes as they are basically released. And remember, please share this podcast to as many people as you possibly can.
If you enjoy it, of course, because, well, on the listener's perspective, this is something that you may not entirely be aware of. The podcast market, although it is a very big and growing one, it is still rather niche and compared to some of the other platforms out there. And now on top of that, we are in the occult section per se. So that's even more niche than just a niche market. So getting your name out there is a little bit complicated sometimes. So if truly, as Baron said, if you enjoy this podcast, please tell your friends or people about this so that they can reach this podcast as well, so that our reach can expand so that we can make more content and so that more people will be able to hear the information that we have to share.
Find us on Facebook, Spreaker, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Google, Amazon, and others.
Also, feel free to visit our parent website at arachnearcaneservices.com. And always remember, as above, so below.
As within, so without.